Are you a businesswoman who is finding it challenging to get your ideas across and make a point? Welcome to Speakers Who Get Results with Elizabeth Bachman, a podcast dedicated to helping women get the visibility they want, whether making a speech or talking in a meeting. Every week, get valuable lessons from Elizabeth or learn from her roundtable conversations with experts and speakers on how to make a difference, not just a point. On to the show with your host, Elizabeth Bachman.
Hello, and welcome to Speakers Who Get Results. I'm Elizabeth Bachman, your host, and this is the podcast where we talk to experts from around the world about communication, presentation skills, leadership, and diversity. Before I go on to my wonderful guest today, I'd like to invite you to see how your presentation skills stack up by taking our free 4-minute assessment at speakforresultsquiz.com. That's speakforresultsquiz.com. And that's where in just 4 minutes, you can see where your presentation skills are strong and helping you, and where perhaps a bit of support could give you the results you need and the recognition that you deserve. My guest today is Vaneese Johnson. Vaneese Johnson is the Boldness Coach. She's a certified executive coach, brand strategist, business coach, author, and an award-winning international speaker with more than 25 years of experience. She's known as a truth teller and a transformation instigator. That's someone who creates transformation and gets them started. Vaneese is an expert at helping business and professional leaders claim their boldness to create unstoppable success. She combines her extensive coaching, professional development, and entrepreneurial experience with her proprietary success fundamentals, which are branding your innovative genius, that's big, spells big, and BAD, which is being authentically daring, to give her audience the courage to dream bigger and set larger goals for these careers, for their businesses, and for their personal lives. As an empowerment evangelist for bold professional and personal development, Vaneese draws on her experience and innovative strategies to help high-performing, high-potential professionals and business leaders connect to their talents, to their skills, and their values. She helps them level up for unparalleled business and professional growth. And there's a great deal more in Vaneese's bio, which we will put in the show notes. But I don't want to spend any more time delaying getting to this great conversation and fun conversation with the wonderful Vaneese Johnson. Vaneese, my friend, welcome to Speakers Who Get Results.
Yes, I'm excited to be here, Elizabeth.
Well, it's really fun, as we knew each other way back when, which is a story we'll tell in a minute. And you've got this fabulous program about the bold coaching. Before we get into that, I need to ask you about who would be your dream interview. If you were to interview someone who's no longer with us, who would it be? What would you ask them? And who should be listening?
You know, my dream interview would be with Madam C.J. Walker. So Madam C.J. Walker was the first recorded female millionaire in the United States. She's actually in the Guinness World Book of Records for being the first female millionaire in the United States.
And she was Black in post-Civil War America.
Yes, she was. She absolutely was. So to see a Black woman in that time period of American history, to achieve something so grand as that, given the fact that she is coming in as a millionaire right on the heels of slavery. Her parents were slaves, and her parents' parents were slaves. So at that time in America, for a Black woman and a woman to be able to achieve, Elizabeth, such feat of success is totally admirable.
Explain to those who don't understand the significance, the politics of hair. So what did Madam C.J. Walker do? Let's talk about that first, and then talk about the politics of that, because I think there are a lot of people who don't know.
Yeah. So Madam C.J. Walker really made her $1 million, dollars off of hair care products for Black women and Black Americans, during that time frame, but specifically targeting Black women. And so the conversation of Black women and their hair, it's a it's part of American history, because I don't think I would do it justice to say it's a decade-long conversation or 2 decades-long conversations. It's been a conversation since, from slavery.
Yeah.
I think that what we can appreciate, especially international listeners, is that coming from different parts of the world, we all have unique traits about us. And, African women have thick hair. And I mean, let's look at where they are on the continent and the world. The beam and heat.
Yeah.
So you take that and you take people out of their environment, right, and bring them to the States, then there is some adaptability that has to happen over time as generations are born. And so what Madam C.J. Walker did was to create products that gave Black women the opportunity to style their hair in a way that was more acceptable, per se,
acceptable to the dominant culture, which was the white culture.
Yes, more acceptable to the dominant culture and the white culture. Also, it helped to create status levels, in the Black community as well. So if you were presenting yourself to be dominant to the majority culture, but you also was presenting yourself from a societal level within a culture, your hair is definitely an entree that can give you invitations into the room.
Let's call it out for what it is. It's basically taking curly hair and making it look straight, which is what fits the North European model.
Absolutely.
Northern European Caucasian model.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And at that time period, there was no one per se. I think there were some little side businesses, of other women that were creating hair care products. But Madam C.J. Walker really focused intently on creating a formula and trying it on herself, on her own hair, and then trying on the hair of the women closest to her. So that lends itself to the entrepreneurial trait, 100%. As entrepreneurs, especially women entrepreneurs, we tend to try our products and our services on our community that's most closely connected to us.
Yeah. You start with the people you know. Yeah.
Yeah. And then from that point, you kind of fine tune that product. She also was really amazing at galvanizing financial support. So a lot of her supporters were men investors. So
which of course, women were not allowed to control their own money at that point. So
at that point, no. And also women weren't allowed to actually come into the room to speak to men. And especially present them with investment opportunities. So she really kind of gave us an opportunity to really look at network marketing in a sense, because she was able to do that to get investment, but she was also able to do network marketing to get the product out there. She was the first one, way before Mary Kay, of course, to be able to help women to start to build their own wealth. By helping women to go door to door, teaching them how to sell to salons, how to start their own hair salons. She also was really credited with manufacturing, having to create assembly lines, a set formula to be able to replicate, and produce and then sell.
Wow. Yes, there was a very interesting, she's a very interesting person to read about. And then a couple of years ago, or last year, I guess, there was a very interesting mini series about her starring Octavia Spencer, which I would recommend streaming if you haven't. It was very good. So Vaneese, you are talking about boldness and how important it is to be bold. You've got some really cool acronyms. Like, you talk to us about the acronyms.
Absolutely. Well, I want to speak to boldness and how this all came about, Elizabeth, because I think that sometimes we hear the word boldness and we think of something that's brash, in a sense. But boldness really is becoming out loud daily. That has to do with you owning your authenticity.
Okay, wait, BOLD is becoming out loud daily. Got it. Okay, got it.
And so that has to do with you being your authentic self every day in every way. It's an evolution to become who you are in life. And why that's important is because we grow and we change in different phases of our lives. Who we used to be in our 20s is who we're not in our 30s, certainly who we're not in our 50s.
Yeah, right.
So Bold is a platform that gives you, an opportunity to give yourself permission to become who you are out loud daily. And out loud really means is living and expressing your authentic self.
Now, go into, give us some examples there, because people are always talking about your authentic self, but what does that actually mean?
Right. What does that mean? What does that look and sound and feel like?
Yeah.
Nice,
and lovely, fancy word. What? Yeah.
I'll use
Break it down for us, please.
Yeah. I'll use myself, as an example. I am an outgoing person. I'm an extrovert. And one of the things that I used to do very early in my career was I really tried to tone myself down and I tried to fit in. And I tried to fit into whatever the popular culture was, in the corporate space. And I think as women, I'm probably speaking for a lot of women, that, that was something that was conditioned, in us, that we have to walk a certain walk, talk a certain way, wear a certain style. And in doing that, I always felt that there was a part of me that was muffled. And, and I always felt like, throughout my workday that I was struggling because I wasn't really, afforded a space to be able to speak up. To be able to share opinions and thoughts, or be able to, allow my energy to vibrate, the way that it does. And so as I moved forward into my career and started my own company, then I had an opportunity to really stop and say, well, wait a minute, who am I and how do I want to make sure that if I'm bringing value to the world, that the world can trust me? They can trust that I am a true representation of myself.
Oh, great. Okay.
And so as I stepped into that, owning being extrovert and being able to really learn what that feels and looks like when I'm in meetings, what does that feel and look like when I show up and dress? You can see now I wear color. Color is and vibrant color. That is my personality. My personality is vibrant. And so what's important to me is when I walk in certain rooms that there's a place for vibrancy, in that room. I often seek out places for vibrancy because I know that my authentic self will be welcomed. And what's funny is that a lot of people that I meet first time, that's how they recognize me because they see me as vibrant. They said, I knew it was you. I saw your red hair. I knew it was you. I saw a colorful jacket, or they see me and they say, gosh, I wish I could. And I tell them, you can. You just have to find your level of bold. So authentic means really being your true self. And it's important to be in environments that open up space for you to be your true self. And some people might say, Elizabeth, well, Vaneese, what happens if you can't do that at work? Well, if you're in a position and you're always having to shadow down who you are, and it affects your contributions to the company. It affects your contributions to the end user. It affects the relationships around you because you can't be your authentic self. Then I think you have to really question at this point, what is really next for you? And if this is it, because we all need that space to breathe.
What do you say to introverts then? Or do the introverts never come talk to you because they're hiding?
No. So one thing that I love about being the boldness coach is that I tell people to find their level of bold. So if you are a person that is an introvert, you still have boldness within you. Your boldness may be a quiet boldness. Your boldness could be in the way that you write. It could be that you're part of a team and not necessarily the leader of the team. So the boldness could be in your style of dress. Maybe your style of dress is more pastel, maybe it's more conservative, and that's okay. But at the end of the day, what's really important about boldness is to own that which is true for you about you. Doesn't matter if you're an extrovert or an introvert.
How can we find our personal level of bold and think about how it affects the people that we work with? Because if your personal level of bold is showing up in a bikini because you're so good, you're so great at the gym and you've got all these muscles and you're going to show up in your bikini, but you work in a bank.
Yeah.
That might not be so. So how do we take into account owning ourselves and our authentic selves and who's paying attention?
Yeah, that brings us around to the conversation about branding.
Branding, okay.
Brand. And that has, and we'll talk about branding, but I want to address the bikini for a second. If you're the type of person and you feel that that level of working out, taking care of your physique is something that's important to you, and you feel that being able to share that and demonstrate that importance to the world, it's going to be important for you to find the right outlet to do that.
Okay.
I think that the challenge comes when people try to force other people around them to, accept them as who they are, when in fact, they perhaps might need to go and find outlets, that welcome that level of boldness. So I just wanted to say that.
Okay, good answer. Yeah. Part of why I ask is because a great deal of my work is how to shift the way you are perceived by shifting the way you communicate.
Yes.
It's basically addressing your listeners, the listeners you really want to have listen, in a fashion that they can take it in, rather than forcing them to listen to you the way you talk. You've got to do it in a way that will fit what they can hear.
Right. You have to really take into consideration your audience in every walk that you are really pursuing, on your
Rule
career.
number one is know your audience. Yes.
Know your audience. You have to know your audience. Now, being the boldness coach, I have the opportunity, and I'm very thankful and grateful that I get to talk and interact with people from around the world. And oftentimes I am in cultures where it is not appropriate, or acceptable or part of that culture for women to be necessarily as vibrant. So then what I do is I discuss with them. So tell me what's important to you, about who you are that you want to bring to the world. So I meet people where they are, Elizabeth, and I allow, in meeting them where they are, this gives them an opportunity to allow themselves to see the possibility of how they still can be authentic, even within cultures that, this is really important that they follow certain guidelines.
Yes.
In that culture. So that's still knowing your audience. There are other audience members that I go in sometimes, and they are excited about the vibrancy. They have been waiting and looking for an opportunity where they can have their energy to be expansive, in that way. So I give them space for that as well. And so, but when you know your audience and you know the room, it's important to be able to dance.
Yes.
You want to dance with the room, and you want to include, want to make sure that it's an inclusive environment, so that there are times when your energy resonates, with those that are looking for the vibrancy, but you also connect with those that are looking for, well, how do I be myself if I'm not that vibrant? So language and energy, has to vacillate, when you're in the room, so that everyone's included.
I like the word dance. If you think about dancing with it, and so that everybody does get included. As you are talking about being bold, talk about the importance of using speaking to build your personal brand.
Yeah. And this takes us back to the acronym BOLD, BIG, BAD. So we talked about bold, becoming out loud daily, finding those avenues that allow you to be your authentic self. And for me, speaking is one of those avenues to be my authentic self. And so having that stage allows me to be able to have that vibrant energy come out of me, because that's authentically who I am. BIG stands for building in your genius. So
Building
this,
in your genius. Big.
yes,
Okay.
big.
Yeah.
So this is an opportunity for all professionals to be able to really take their genius and make it expansive. Here's what I mean by that is we all, Elizabeth, have at least one talent that really is innate to us that we can be able to take and make that talent expansive.
Mhm.
And I'm going to use myself again as an example. So I'm a talker. Can you believe I used to get in trouble in the third grade and the fourth grade, I think, for talking in class?
Oh, yeah.
I used to have to write lines.
You were that kid, right?
That kid. I would have to write lines in addition to my homework. I would not talk in class.
Mhm.
But what I did is I cultivated, my talking into a speaking career. So I'm a speaker, a coach, and I do workforce development training.
And you speak
So
internationally.
I speak internationally as well. I've been really blessed to be able to do that. And so now with those three prongs, so speaking, that one innate gift, speaking, led me to the opportunity of being an international speaker, a coach, and a workforce development trainer. Now, under each one of those headings are opportunities to drill down that gift even more. So as a speaker, international markets, I speak to small business groups, I speak to women groups. So I'm always in a room of speaking. I've been a facilitator before, I've been a moderator before, I've been a panelist guest before. So you see how that gift keeps on giving. As a trainer, a workshop facilitator, then training also has given me opportunities for corporate, to do a lot of corporate work and training groups and training teams, and workforce development coupled with my HR background and speaking, helps me to work with those companies that are developing their teams and leadership development. So that one gift of speaking has opened up many extensions, of possibilities for my career. So I want everyone listening to this is to think about what is your one innate gift your innate gift that you feel like I am so good at that. And the evidence comes from people around you that say, you're great at that. You should do that again.
Which should be a good time for just talk about how we recently reconnected.
Yes.
About a month ago.
Yes.
And you reminded me of an occasion.
Yes. Yeah. So the first time that you and I met, we met at a speaking event that was it was sponsored by Jackie Spears, Senator Jackie Spears. She's one of the senators of California. And she had I don't know if it was some type of young girl event where all of the young girls from around the county of San Francisco, from all the various schools, were brought to this huge auditorium to spend the day, with women that could be good role models and mentors for them. And so I was one of the featured speakers. It was my first time speaking on stage, and there were 1,400 young girls in the audience. And I got out, I delivered my speech, and I rocked it, and they gave me a rousing applause. And when I got off the stage, before I could leave that area, Elizabeth, you tapped me on my forearm and you said to me, I don't know what you have planned for your career, but this is what you need to be doing for the rest of your career.
Yeah.
And I was so blown away by that. And from that point forward, I really invested, learning how to become a speaker, but how to become a great speaker. And I just used that in my business, from that point forward. That was actually about 27 years ago when we met.
Yeah.
And so I saw you last month and I was like, oh my gosh, can I just tell you how you impacted my career? So you really allowed me to give myself permission to be big in my career. So thank you so much for that.
And it's the sort of thing where you never know when one encouraging word will make a difference. And I had forgotten. I had forgotten you were just one of the many speakers, and I go to a lot of speakers events.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I think about, and I want to ask your thoughts, is how, when we step forward and become visible and show our value. So visible and valued is one of the one of the brands that I use to help people show up as leaders.
Mhm.
It's important it's important for those who are still trying to decide if they dare, if they can.
Yeah. Mhm.
So that we are sometimes active mentors, but sometimes we're just an example
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
somebody. Yeah.
I think that's the best thing that we can do really for people, is to be a demonstration of what's possible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually always been that way. I mean, for me, Madam C.J. Walker is definitely a demonstration of what's possible in, in a time period, where it shouldn't have been per se.
Yeah.
You know,
Shouldn't have been possible, right?
It shouldn't have been possible at all. But indeed, it was possible. And every time she kept overcoming the impossible. And
Mhm.
what I mean by that is, every time she ran into a brick wall, she had to step back and figure out, how do I get past this brick wall?
Mhm.
And she also didn't do it alone. And I
Ah,
think that's really important for us as a community of speakers, is to know that you can definitely achieve the highest of heights in your speaking career, whatever level of speaking that you want to do. You don't need to do it alone.
and
And
same in business.
yeah,
Same in business as in management. I've been hearing a lot lately about people who get promoted to a new position,
mhm,
and things are going to be different
yeah,
when you are a senior director instead of a manager. Certainly, if you're an individual contributor
yeah,
promoted to manager, ask for help, because you don't have to do it alone.
yeah,
And that's a whole other conversation, would take us another
yeah,
hour, so I'm not
yeah.
going to go there. But uh, another question for you
Mhm.
is, when you are working with people who are trying to find their bold and so forth, can you talk a little bit about the internal blocks
Oh yes.
that we
Oh
have to be aware of? Those voices in our head
yeah.
that we're so used to, we don't really notice how much they're sabotaging us.
One of the strategies that I do with coaching clients, and also when I'm speaking to groups, especially groups of women, is the first thing I talk about is self-awareness.
Mhm.
I think it's very important to intentionally be aware of yourself,
Mhm.
meaning be aware of your thoughts, be aware of how those thoughts turn into actions, and be aware of what impact those actions have.
Mhm.
And that's really a great way to start, because when we pay attention to what our mindset is when we are in action or about to get in action with something, then that's the perfect opportunity for us to stop and say, okay, wait a minute. What am I thinking about? Why am I thinking about this? And let me weigh my pros and cons on this. If I'm thinking it this way or thinking of it that way. I think that's really important. Then the next step again is to say, if I were to do this thing, what would be the positive impact that this could
Okay.
have if I take this direction?
Mhm.
How could it impact others? How could it impact me? And you ask the reverse, what could be the negative impact, for them or for myself? And it's important to step back and to look at that. If you're in your head too much and you're like, Vaneese, I can't decide, because sometimes that happens.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
condition. It's really a mindset conditioning. And people might say, oh, change your mindset. But in all honesty, we don't wake up with the mindset one day.
Yeah.
It's conditioning, and
Mhm.
so it's important that when you start to recognize, what, I'm getting in my own way and I'm challenging to get out of that way. That's where people like me as a coach can come in and help you to really lay the pieces of the puzzle on the table. And let's really talk about what it is that we see,
Mhm.
on that.
Yeah.
A lot of clients, they want to go to the next level. And sometimes they have just created this story,
Oh yeah.
that now has become a reality for them, when in fact the story may not be true, and or parts of the story may not be true at all. And,
Mhm.
and that leads to another point, which gets into self-sabotage.
Mhm. Yeah.
So, people typically put themselves in spaces of self-sabotage. You can inadvertently end up there, even if you're the most like, oh, I'm self-assured, I'm confident, I know myself. However, if you're feeling any sense of unworthiness,
Mhm.
If you are feeling any sense of not belonging, any of those senses, it will put you into that self-sabotage space, because you'll find yourself trying to meet the external needs versus your internal needs.
That's very good.
You're responding to external expectations versus your internal expectations.
I keep thinking about a phrase I heard some years ago that just I go back to a lot, which is the self-doubt will come up anytime you are stretching.
Yes.
Anytime you're doing something a little unfamiliar, because of course, those voices from childhood are there to keep you safe. You know, it's your parents who say, don't touch that hot stove, et cetera. You know, don't go run into the street. And then pieces of it stay with us as adults.
Yeah. And I can tell you, and you may agree with this, you know, also, is that whenever I'm in a period of stretching, you know, and I see myself stretching, and then, you know, that voice comes up, I have some trusted, you know, friends and colleagues that I call. Because I'm like, you know what, mind, I cannot be alone with you.
Well, it's like the voices, to be aware of the voices, and
be aware of the voices. And then I call someone that I trust in my circle. I try and identify if there's someone else in my circle first who lives in the space of a stretch, because they're going to know exactly, you know, when roadblocks come up. And I reach out and talk to that person, and I'm vulnerable, and I'm like, listen, I'm struggling. You know, this is what's going on. This is where I want to go. And I really just want to talk this out so that I can be able to get to the next level. And that helps out so much, is having a community or network, you know, of people that you absolutely trust around different areas of your growth. Some of them are great for leadership. Some of them are great to help you to refine your communication skills. Some of them are great to help you with your visual brand. You know, so you really have to make sure that you get the support that you need, so that you're not left alone trying to figure this out.
Yeah. The worst thing is when you're stuck in your own head, and that's because then there's just the voices to listen to. Yeah.
And I don't know if you've read this before or heard this, or anyone listening. Oprah mentioned one time she had 20 coaches.
Okay.
She had 20 coaches. And here's the beautiful thing about that. Oprah's a billionaire.
Yeah.
She has coaches.
She got help. Yes.
She got help. She still has help. She just had her knees replaced, you know, and she was out hiking again, you know, and she had a team of people with her hiking.
Yes. To make her do it, to keep her going.
Keep her going.
Well, Vaneese Johnson, this is really, it's so much fun to talk with you. If somebody is listening to this and thinking, she's talking about me, what is one thing you could do to start reaching towards your own boldness?
Yes, I love this question. The one thing that you can do is to tell yourself the truth. Self-truth. And the self-truth is, have that really maybe uncomfortable conversation with yourself, and look at different aspects of your life, and tell yourself the truth about how you have been showing up in that particular area of your life. Have you been playing to win? Have you been playing not to lose? Have you just been playing, or have you been not playing at all?
Okay.
And I think that's really important, to tell yourself the truth, because that within itself it's going to propel you to say, okay, do I want to continue to operate in this space, knowing how I'm showing up?
So playing to win, playing to lose, or not playing at all.
Or just playing.
Or just playing.
Or just playing. Just playing is, I'm just going along to get along.
Okay.
Playing to win means you stretching. Like, I got my resources, I'm doing what I need to do. Playing not to lose, I'm doing just enough to get by.
Okay. Playing not to lose then.
Yeah, playing not to lose. Yeah, playing not to lose is like, I'm just doing enough to get by so I don't get called out.
Yeah.
And playing not at all means that you just, like, I'm not doing that. And then you're on the sidelines And then when other people are succeeding or moving forward, then you're in the victimhood. Everybody's leaving me. I'm left behind. Nothing's working for me.
Yeah. It's all very well for you, but I do remember very early on in my career as an entrepreneur, being taught about the three main objections you have if you are in a sales conversation. And what we are talking about here is marketing yourself, you are the product, to the people who can help you get past the glass ceiling.
Yes.
And I remember hearing that the three main objections are time, money, and success.
Yes.
And time and money are obvious, but the success objection is the one of, well, that sounds fine for you, but it would never work for me.
Yeah. Yeah. And so that leads me to one of the areas that I talk about with women is success intolerance.
Not tolerating success.
Not tolerating success, not able to handle success. It's like, there's a book by Gay Hendricks called The Big Leap. And he has a chapter in there talking about the upper ceiling. It's like, it is very common for people to, and especially women, to put a ceiling on their success.
Yeah.
And, and it's like, well, I just want to get here. And once I get here, everything will be great. But there may be another step right up above there. And it's like, oh, well, I want to be manager. I don't want to be a director.
Yeah.
I just want to be a manager. And then if they're doing the activities of a director, now they're frustrated because, well, I should get the title because I'm not doing, because I'm doing the work.
And the pay. Yes.
And hey, I want the title and the pay, but I want to stay where I am. And what happens with success intolerance, what that really means is that, not having the resources, to support you or the systems in place to support yourself as you move through it. That is a form of stretch. Success is a form of stretch. And we all stretch on some levels in our lives for some things. But when we look at our careers, that's more of an intentional, strategic stretch, that we do. And so it's important that before you start to move in that direction is to have that moment of self-truth with yourself, because again, you're going to be enlightened by your answers. And then you can choose at that point, depending on what you want, where you want to go, what type of success, resources, and support might you need along the way. And it is an evolution of bold. It is not a wake up today and I become the CEO of a company moving from like a middle management position. It's really evolving, to in that level. And as you evolve, you're able to really address those barriers, along the way and keep going. If Madam C.J. Walker had gotten to a point where she just made a product and only thing that she did was to just create a little out of her kitchen, out of the back room product, that we would never know her.
Because she wouldn't have been a millionaire. Yeah.
She wouldn't have been a millionaire. So what the lessons we can take from that is every time she reached an obstacle that could have gotten in her way or that did get in her way, she rallied people around her to say, listen, I'm stuck and this is what I need. And I need you to help me. And if the people with her were like, well, I can't help you with that. That's not appropriate for you to do that. Then she was like, okay, move out the way. I'm going to find somebody else.
Yeah. That's wonderful. That's a great story to end on. So Vaneese Johnson, thank you so very much for being on Speakers Who Get Results. I'm really happy that we were reconnected after all these years.
Yes.
This has been Speakers Who Get Results. If you enjoyed today's conversation, tell your friends, subscribe to us on YouTube. You can subscribe to us, follow Vaneese. We'll have all that information in the show notes. Especially leave us a good review on Apple Podcasts. That's the important one. That's how that's the one that gets us visibility so that we can have more great conversations. This has been Speakers Who Get Results. I'm Elizabeth Bachman. I'll see you on the next one.
We have just concluded another great episode of Speakers Who Get Results with your host, Elizabeth Bachman. If you got value from today's episode, please feel free to share us with your friends and colleagues. You may also visit elizabethbachman.com for additional resources. Be sure to tune in every week for new episodes. And thanks for tuning in.